Welcome, guys.
Welcome to Even Grounds. Oh, who's that?
New name, same flavor. Welcome to the rebrand.
The rebrand.
We have renamed the podcast Even Grounds.
Why did we do that?
Formerly Nightcaps.
Mm-hmm.
I think what happened was that we just can't drink 24/7. Well, I mean, you can't. I probably can.
I can't. Nor can I drink at 10 a.m.
Right.
On
exactly.
a normal day.
So, with our schedules, we kind of reached points where we had to create content early in the day.
Yep.
And it just wasn't.
Didn't always feel like having a drink.
Yeah, it wasn't mimosa time.
No.
No, it was coffee time.
It was. You can have coffee at all hours of the day.
Of
we
course
also
you can.
have
And
a
thank
long,
God you can.
both of us, a long history with coffee,
We
which
do.
we will get into later. But thus was birthed Even Grounds.
Even Grounds. And we are here live from Treehouse JC.
In Jersey City, West Side Ave.
Wonderful little shop,
Mm-hmm.
opened by and run by good friends of ours, Frank and Diana. Shout out to them. Thank you for letting us take over this place for this past week. It's been quite an interesting time, right?
Yeah,
What
I
a
can't
ride.
get enough of it.
Yeah, great vibes here, great people, really nice community.
Yeah, such interesting conversations, such friendly people who are able to kind of just come in and shoot the shit for a minute and get on some weird topics, which is...
And somehow we're, a part of their day.
Yeah, which is really cool. It's cool to be able to supply something that, most people get such an immense amount of joy out of. It's cool to be able to be the catalyst for that joy.
Yeah, and then, besides not wanting to drink at 10 a.m., I think coffee is just kind of a thing that we've grown attached to and kind of started to take more interest in recently. And, we've even talked about opening our own spot one day.
Foreshadow.
Just putting it out there, world,
right.
Universe.
Gotta put
Hope
it
you're
out
listening,
there.
universe.
The universe is always listening.
But
speaking of, do we want to talk about how this came to be and why we're sitting in the shop right now?
Sure. Why don't you go ahead? You start. No.
So, Frank and Diana, who Andy has worked with Frank for years. How long have you known him?
I've known him for, I guess, 5 years at this point. We worked together for 4 of those years at a spot in the city. So he kind of already knew I knew how to make a decent cappuccino.
Right.
So that has to be part of the reason I'm here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He has a great deal of trust, I think, in you.
But they opened the shop not too long ago.
September.
Yeah, it's been a few months.
Yeah, they've been working every single day.
I think we've expressed our interest on social media and otherwise in coffee and wanting to learn, and we just ran into this mutually beneficial situation where
they needed some time away.
They can take a week, and
we needed a foot into the door.
Yeah, here we are.
So we put our foot in the door.
Slinging lattes.
So we've been running the shop since the day after Christmas, and we'll be here until New Year's Day. Kind of learning the ways, learning the ropes. Sandy and I are working back here together. This is really the first time that I've dabbled in the service industry. I kind of have had weird experiences. I've told you about those in the service industry. So I was kind of nervous, but I think both of us, you have plenty of experience in the service industry. But it's been a really smooth transition. I have a million things to learn, but I feel so comfortable back here. There's such a natural attraction I have towards this little setup.
Like I said, for me, it's really great to be a part of someone's day in such a positive way.
Yeah.
Provide the coffee, but also the atmosphere and just a hello.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed here is the regular crowd is definitely present. They come in.
Yeah.
You know what they drink. You have a little bit of banter, and hopefully when they're off on their way, their day's a little bit brighter and easier to handle. And that means a lot, especially coming from kind of rough places in retail and now in the holiday. In these times, just seeing how ugly things can get in the mall. It's nice to be away from that. And
speaking of, you mentioned people who are in the moment. Something that I've noticed, which is really, really amazing about people that come into this shop, is seldom do I see anybody on their phone, at least during this initial interaction. They walk in And so many people have asked about the colors and the layout and the beans and everything. And it feels like when somebody walks into this environment, they are coming in not only for the coffee, but they're coming in to have the whole experience and really to look around and to take everything in and elevate every single one of their senses. And I adore watching that. I like being a part of somebody, you know, being here for a wholesome experience and for you know, more than just a quick drive-by sort of thing.
Yeah, it's refreshing. And
it is
it's
very refreshing.
Very different than what we're used to.
Very different. Very different. I mean, you and I, we've discussed this before in podcast episodes, but we come from the hustle and bustle of very high volume retail spaces where you are moving units and moving people and it's a constant go, go, go. And it almost feels like it's never enough. Like it's like just this, it's this hamster on a wheel that, you know, that a lot of industries I think are, but it can feel very draining when you're engulfed in it. And coming into this environment was like, whoo, like it just feels, I don't know, it's this beautiful little moment that you have with a stranger, or that you have with this stranger every day that becomes a friend. I mean, I was training here with Frank last week, and he, almost every single individual that walked into the place, he knew their name and where they were from and what they were going to order. And it was this whole community system moving in one kind of harmonious way. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, so shout out to this neighborhood.
Yeah, some amazing people here.
Yeah, if anybody's tuning in, we appreciate you. This little spot is right on West Side by NJCU. If anybody knows the area, just a couple blocks off of the light rail.
Yeah.
And
or if anybody's listening that we have met, there's been a couple people that have stopped in that we've been able to speak about the podcast too, and they've shown great support. And for somebody that like we're just meeting, for
super
somebody
awesome.
that you just meet to give you that sort of support right out of the jump is really, it's just something else. It's very cool.
And just back to it being so different from what I'm used to.
Yeah.
Coming off of November and December, Black Friday, and just how angry the mall can get, and people, you know, kind of can be really rough with retail workers and with each other, really. You know, you watch people waiting online and they don't want to be there, and it's, you know, it just becomes this atmosphere of just almost hostility.
A little bit.
And
it's a very high pressure environment at all times.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be here coming off of that is just such a difference, and it's so refreshing. I had this moment, I think, you know, I told you a couple of days ago, where there was nobody in here and sun shining outside, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to step outside and get some fresh air. I stepped in front of the door, took a deep breath, and I realized I can't do this at my other job. I can't just go outside for a second.
Right.
You know, I'd have to wait for a break that I have to take, and then even just leaving the store, I'd have to get my bag checked, which kind of makes you feel weird. And so being able to do that, and, you know, just being here for this week has kind of opened my eyes to certain things in that respect.
Yeah.
And it's very refreshing. So
I think the environment also flows really seamlessly too with the product. So, I mean, for coffee, and I mean, I still consider myself very, very new and green to the industry, but I think, I mean, I've been a coffee drinker since, and again, I think we have a whole episode where we talk about coffee, coffee and creativity, but I've been a coffee drinker since I was a teenager.
Same.
And there's something so remarkable about really sitting down to a cup of coffee, and I mean, there's two types of why you would, like, there's either the fuel, but then there's also the other side of coffee, which is, you know, to have a moment of solace and to come down and to just be where you are. And it's cool to, you know, the environment completely matches the product in that sense.
Absolutely.
You can really feel it.
My parents did the really taboo thing when I was like 10 years old, because I would watch them drink it.
Did they let you have
And
it?
yeah, totally. I started on coffee really early.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'd have milk in it, and then there'd be like bread with butter, and, you know, or like a cracker or something, and you dip it. But I started super early.
Yeah.
And was, you know, pretty much hooked.
I did the same.
since.
I think I was probably 15 or 16 that I started drinking it, and by the time I was 17 or 18, I was having it every single day, and I've had it every single day since.
Yeah.
But I
3
originally...
times. I'm a 3-cup man.
But I originally started after seeing my parents, and my parents would like wake up in the morning, and I can remember my mom sitting on our big blue couch that we had in the living room, and she would just sit there and she would just enjoy her coffee. And it was, you know, a little bit of a different time, so phones weren't usually involved, and, you know, it looked like this picture perfect moment, you know, and it seemed really peaceful. So there's a whole vibe, and there's a whole mood that comes with having a cup of coffee. And on the flip side, you can have it to, you know, rev up your engine, and there's also equally a big amount of people who have it, you know, in that grab and go way, which is equally as exciting.
Yeah, I've used it, you know, to pull all-nighters in college, and, you know, kind of also at work I still fuel up. What I do think is interesting, having been in the service industry and making these types of drinks for a while, is how things have changed, and how all these new things, like, you know, I didn't have matcha until, I mean, it's been less than a year.
I've mastered the matcha here.
But, like, that's a thing now, right? Turmeric's a thing.
Yeah. I think those things have always been around.
I had chai a while ago, a few years ago.
They've always been there. I think lately, though, matcha is 1000% under the category of, like, a trendy food nowadays. It's not a food, but, you know, it's under that trend thing. But it is also wildly beneficial and incredibly healthy and fucking delicious.
It tastes great, yeah.
It's delicious. I kill it.
I've always been a fan of chai, too. Come and see us. Come to Treehouse. Plug. So there's a good reason that this was a great time for us to be here at Treehouse for a week, right? Like, we've been talking for a minute about maybe doing this for ourselves one day, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the timing of everything was pretty impeccable to try to get in here, learn the ropes, see what it's all about. I mean, the journey is just beginning, but yeah.
So the end goal might be to
open
our own shop one day, and and we've been motivated and kind of inspired by being here for this week.
Absolutely.
Because it's something we kind of threw around and talked about, but
I feel like we've mentioned it. So we've had, like, this ongoing mention of coffee. You longer, you know, than I
had the idea,
business owners,
a long time ago, and then I saw a place open up that was almost exactly what I had in mind. And, you know, it hurt a little bit, right? Because I thought I thought of it, but somebody else did as well. But I've always wanted to have a store, right? A clothing store. Yeah. I make clothes. That's what I'm into. It makes sense. But being in retail for the past years, you know, you'll notice right away that things are changing. The online ordering,
it's taking over.
Yeah, D2C businesses are everywhere, and it's changing the landscape of brick and mortar stores. And I think the answer for a lot of businesses has been to come up with something else to incorporate with their retail.
Right.
We talk about the American Dream Mall opening up, and they're
that's an amazing example.
Mostly attractions, right?
Mostly, yeah. That's an amazing example.
Yeah. And I've noticed a lot of higher end brands doing, like, gallery museum type things, but also linking the art concept with the fact that these wearable pieces of art.
Well, I think that also taps into the concept of people buying so much more nowadays than product. And I think we're starting to see this in some retailers who are catching on and who are trying to run, you know, as quickly as consumers are running. But people are not anymore just going into a store to buy the product and whatever the store has.
They want an experience.
They want something else tenfold.
So my idea was that eventually, because people do want an experience, and that almost becomes more important, I kept thinking about what I would want to link to my clothes. And at some point I was like, you know what, I drink coffee 3 times a day. My favorite place to go do work is usually a coffee shop. I've been to so many cool ones. It makes total sense to open this space where it could be both. And then I saw something exactly like it, and it seems to work.
Yeah.
So, you know, why not this be a part of your day? And you can also check out, like, the cool clothes.
Yeah.
Right? And I think for what you're into and writing,
100%.
all these, you know, also goes with a space where books and coffee, or what
Absolutely.
goes better than books and coffee?
Well, at so many coffee shops, they have open mic nights where people
Exactly.
read poetry.
Yeah.
And, you know, what better of a scene to sit down with a book of poetry or write? I mean, anytime that I would write and I needed to get out of the house, I have always felt super inspired sitting at a coffee shop. And I fuel a lot of my writing in coffee shops, either, you know, different types of writing, whether I'm writing professionally or writing, you know, my creative writing where I write poetry. Coffee shops have always fueled that, fuel both with the coffee. I mean, I become invigorated by coffee, but also just with the scene and with the vibe. It's a very comforting space to produce work. I've produced good work in coffee shops.
And seeing what a cornerstone of the community this place is,
Yeah.
really makes an idea like that make sense, where it can be a space where you can just come pick up your coffee, or a space where you can like totally hang out. And if you do write poetry or spoken word or whatever, if we have an open mic night, like you can come do that. If you are a writer, you can come do that. If you just want to read, you can come do that. And if you're into t-shirts, there's like a cool merch attached to it with, you know, its own vibe. But it seems to all make sense as one idea. And I think
it has a lot of the different things that you and I are
Exactly.
both into, separately and also together as a couple, seem to really fit in this beautiful melodic way into the space of a coffee shop. Everything that we're into kind of works cohesively together in the space. So it makes sense. It's kind of come together in a really, really cool way.
So that's become the goal. But in order to get to that goal, we kind of all have to move in a direction. And you have recently moved in a direction. Congratulations.
Oh boy.
Are congratulations in order?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I congratulate myself every single day.
I think so.
Don't get me wrong. There's no like, you know, we are beginning a hustle. But to disclose what Andy is alluding to right now,
Kelly has quit her fucking job.
I've quit one of my jobs.
Thank God.
So and I mean, I've mentioned this before, but I have been in the space of retail management for years.
Far too long.
For years. And this past year, I really sat down over the course of a couple months and just really dissected what I was putting my energy towards. And like any full-time job, I mean, I don't think I'm unique in this concept, but anybody with a full-time job that honestly does their job well has to give an immense amount of themselves to the job. You are there for long hours. You're giving a lot of your energy. You are really putting yourself in there. And again, a lot of places, a lot of industries, a lot of different roles require that. And there's nothing wrong with that.
It's become the status quo. Like
it
it's
has.
what is asked of you
in
any job is for you to be available 24/7 now, to kind of like give. And if you don't fraternize, if you don't become a part of whatever's going on, it's like
you're social gatherings.
It's like you're
of
fucking
the work
weird.
Environment, yeah. And I mean, that's a whole different concept that we can absolutely touch on. But
the politics of the workplace.
Oh yeah, and again, to different degrees. I mean, there's some jobs and there's some roles where you can go, you can do your job well, and then you can kind of leave your job there, and then you can.
Those don't exist anymore.
Right. I mean, with competition and with the way that the world is moving, and with industries becoming kind of cutthroat, and you know, like I said, like the market is changing. Like people are. Every industry really is in a dire need to keep up with the community and with culture and with everything like that. And because of that, the employees have to fucking hustle, and they have to be there, and they have to be fully there. And I started to, I don't know, like I said, I was reevaluating where my energy was going, and it was fueling. Don't get me wrong, I had developed a really strong relationship with retail leadership and a really strong relationship with the people that I was leading. But how I describe it is, if the people weren't there, and if the environment wasn't there, or the environment was different. I mean, I've been in a lot of different retail spaces thus far, but the work just wasn't, it's just not the work that I feel my life is supposed to be revolved around. And
I guess the other side of the coin to jobs asking this much more of you is that what you do also kind of, in today's day and age, it has to feel really authentic to who you are.
Right.
And if it doesn't, then
you've either but to be okay with it not being authentic, you've either succumbed to the robotic movements that some of these industries want you to succumb to, or I don't know.
Or you're faking it.
Or you're faking it. And I got to the point where I was faking it a little bit, and it bugged the shit out of me. And it also,
as it should.
But I also wasn't able to produce the best work that I could, because I was starting to get to that point where I was a little bit removed, and I was just a little bit mentally removed, and I wasn't able to give the job what the job needed from me. And it became inauthentic. And that's not to say, I still, I adore leadership, and I adore, having that business savvy mentality. I like that. I align with that. I'm interested in business. It all fascinates me. I've learned so much, but being in that structured, you have to do things this way, you have to give this message, you have to push this product, it just wasn't aligning with who I think I am. And I also was losing some of not losing it, but I wasn't able to have my creativity flourish as much as I needed to in order to be fulfilled in my life. So I was giving so much, as so many people do, and in return I was just getting a really significant paycheck, but nothing else was, I was just losing it.
And that throws things out of balance. And I think that's the important thing, is that, making money is great.
It is.
But not at the expense of being fulfilled in certain ways.
But the other thing too about making money, you can make money in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And I think
especially nowadays.
Yeah.
In the climate today, you can self-publish things. There's so many ways to get into an industry and to make, even a little bit. It makes me think of that Gary Vee thing that he says when he's like, do you want to make this much money but not be happier?
Well,
or would you be happier making half that,
right,
but doing it for yourself and doing something that you really enjoy?
Right.
That might be the better formula for a lot of people, especially for me. And I think that's where you are right now at this point.
Yeah. And I had also gained so much experience, and I had been down the same lane and the same road for so many years that I kind of just kept working my way up. And I kind of just kept developing this track record and this history and this experience, and I worked my way up to a pretty high position. But when I did all of this evaluation, and I think subconsciously this was there all along for the past maybe a couple of years, but I really sunk into it these past couple months. And I had worked my way up, and I had built this image and this professional identity, and I just wasn't relating to it anymore like I used to. And that conflict was really troublesome for me, and I felt very detached from a huge part of who I am, and that started to reap its head into so many other facets of my life. So I was becoming, I was just I had all this discontent, and I had frustration, and I was, it was displaying itself in other areas of my life, and I wasn't fully saying, you know what, I'm doing work that is not fulfilling to me anymore like I used to. And there's nothing wrong with the field, it just wasn't in line with who I am right now. Yeah. So
it's like a relationship, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you outgrow a field, but it's hard, right? Because if somebody is in this field for so long, if anybody's in their respected industry for how many years, it's a good thing. You become an expert of the craft. You've built this whole entire thing, and then to all of a sudden feel a detachment towards it is kind of a crisis. You don't know whether you should go out on this limb and just say fuck it and jump into another area. Also, how do you do that? That in itself is a confusing concept, especially in a professional industry where the longer you have the years that you have behind you build your reputation in the field. It's a very conflicting, confusing thing. But I came to the conclusion that this was something that I had to do. So. And
you've been building your writing career for a while as well, so
that too. And I've dabbled in it, and because I was spending so much time at my full time, I wasn't able to you know, spend as much time as I could and make writing into what it was or what it's going to be and what I want it to be. So that too was the leap of faith. I was kind of like stacking these little acorns over on the side. And then I finally decided, you know what? The stack feels mildly high enough, kind of. So
here we are.
And then I quit.
Welcome to the world of freelancing.
Oh boy. Which, shout out to the freelancers, man. I am not able to call myself one yet, I don't think, but shout out.
You are getting paid to do work. You can't.
Right.
That's absolutely a freelancing job. So
yeah,
you're here.
I am.
It's just about building it, and
right.
that takes time. It takes dedication, but you started a long time ago. It's not, you know.
Right.
It's just, I think about an allocation of resources, right? Your time and your energy can now switch from retail management to this, and it will, and you're going to start to see the fruits of that kind of, you know, pay off pretty soon.
I think too, while we're talking about the coffee shop, I think that is going to allow both of us to fulfill us working for ourselves, but also hold on to our ability to run and enjoy operating and managing a business, because that part of us is very much so there.
Absolutely.
There's just a big difference between that and doing it because somebody else is telling you to do it. They're like night and day.
And it can almost even be the same exact thing, because I very much want to sell clothes, and I'm involved in selling clothes during the day, but for me it's the difference of working that hard and doing it for somebody else, and I get paid pretty well, like and it's, you know, there are very fulfilling parts of my job that I enjoy, but if I'm gonna work this hard, I want it to be for myself. I mean, I don't mind putting 14-hour days in. I put them in all the fucking time.
Absolutely.
But at the end, I wanted to be building a brand that I crafted, that I believe in, that I've kind of, you know.
Well, it's almost comparable to like paying rent versus buying
like, a house.
Yeah, because I mean, people pay rent.
That's a good analogy, I guess.
I mean, you pay copious amounts of money paying rent, and it almost feels like, I mean, don't get me wrong, you have a place to live at the end of the day.
Yeah, you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, but
it
it's
serves
not,
its function.
Yeah, but there's a big difference towards, you know, what you're fueling and the product of. I don't know. I think there's something so remarkable about building something that's your own and being able to, you know, I mean, look at Frank and Diana. They work, they're open 7 days a week.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the two of them. Like, they just started this business. Both of them they're also parents, but they're putting so much of themselves into this.
And it's catching. The other day when, you know, they kind of advertised a donut special, and then then somebody walks in and like, oh, I heard there was a special on donuts, and
not
you're
even
like, wow.
30 minutes after Frank, like he does the marketing himself on their Instagram page, and so to see that come back, like how amazing, like I don't know,
it's inspiring.
It's very inspiring. It's very inspiring. It's very inspiring. There's a whole nother level of passion and heart that you're going to put into something when it's yours.
And that again goes back to how authentic the work is. You know, this is something that's authentic to them.
Right.
So of course it's going to work, because when people come in here, they feel that, they see that. It's in everything from the decor to the coffee.
Right. It also goes, I mean, this whole concept also ties into your brand. I mean, Self Understood has this message of creating your own rules and living how you want to live, and not letting anybody tell you otherwise, and giving your message how you want to give it, and when you want to give it, and where you want to give it, and how better fitting than to operate something where you are directly in control of what you're giving off.
That took so long to figure out, because when I started making stuff, it was like, because that's what, you know, I enjoyed the art form and that's what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And people start asking you, well, what's your stuff about?
Right.
And
who are you?
When you first start out, you don't really know. You're like, and then that makes you look in the mirror and be like, shit, what is my stuff about? Like, what is this trying to say? And you kind of like, at least in my experience, it's, you don't know right away. You just kind of have to keep making stuff until one day you look at it and you're like, oh shit,
that's what it's about.
This says build your own. It says
Right.
like, you know, I'm going to do this on my terms.
Right.
And eventually the people that do pick it up, it resonates with them because
Right.
they want to do things on their terms as
Right.
well. And it becomes a community. And you know, that's kind of what's happened here. And it's great to watch. It's great to be a part of.
Yeah.
It's kind of why we started podcasting too, right? Like,
Absolutely.
hey,
Absolutely.
we can express things and put things out there that we believe in and talk about things in a public forum. And nowadays anybody can. That's what's so interesting. Like, you know,
That also completely loops back to what we were talking about making money, and people get super comfortable with somebody else giving them money, and you know, we establish this level of depending on our jobs for the income. And don't get me wrong, I don't mean to say that, like, you know, my head's not that much in the clouds, but you can generate money in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And we get, what I'm trying to say is that we get into the place where we rely on the routine of what we have or whatever we have established, and we're worried about that, and we're worried about, you know, making a pivot and switching lanes because it could be a little bit more unknown, and it could be a little bit more unstable, and you know, I mean, I think that as long as you have to strategize, there's other components to that, but we get scared to take that leap and to make that jump.
that reminds me of a conversation we were having earlier with Xavier, where we were kind of talking about the same thing, but you were like, you know, we're kind of socialized to seek comfort
Right.
as soon as we can, right?
Right.
Like, I don't remember exactly how you put it, but we're socialized to stay there, right? Like, that's the right thing to do. That's where you should be. You know, go to college, get a job. This is safe. Do this, because the people who break out of that, you know, like, who knows what's going to happen? But what could happen is something bigger.
So there's a book, and right now the author's name is escaping me, but the title of the book is called The Coddling of the American Mind.
I think you've spoken about it on the podcast before. But
I forget the author's name, but this concept of seeking comfort is this is all the book talks about, how we are conditioned to seek comfort, and you see it a lot. And I don't want to get, you know, too crazy here, but you
get crazy. That's what this is for.
But you see it a lot in younger generations. You see it a lot with everything having a trigger warning, and everything having, you know,
we're soft.
These warnings.
We're soft as a society.
But you see that, and what that does is it makes people confuse danger with discomfort. And there's nothing wrong with Greg Lukianoff. Greg Lukianoff. Yeah, The Coddling of the American Mind. It's brilliant, and this is what it talks about a lot amongst a lot of other things. It's an incredible book, but it discusses this, and it discusses this confusion between danger and discomfort, and it almost has, like, it's straying away from discomfort, which is almost taught nowadays. If something makes you uncomfortable, if it's a trigger for you, you should move the other way. You should remove yourself. You should avoid that confrontation.
And society's moving that way.
Well, that's what I mean. But that doesn't allow for you to view different perspectives. It doesn't allow for you to get comfortable with discomfort. Yeah, and to lean into discomfort. And once you train that muscle of being okay with discomfort and not feeling like you're in danger every time you are uncomfortable, once you're okay with that concept, you can break past so many barriers that you have set for yourself, or that society has set for you, right? Like, but when you stay within that, and if all of a sudden something makes you uncomfortable or it triggers you, like, you turn around and you're like, no, like, don't want to move towards that, like, I feel uncomfortable, like, you're closing yourself off to so much that's right behind the fence if you would just fucking move past through the fence. You know what I mean? Because
I see it, and at risk of sounding like, you know, the old man, it kind of, I work with a lot of young people, and I see the difference generationally in these kids kind of just, like, not being okay with breaking out of their comfort zone, of these, like, bubbles that they've created for themselves. And what I said before about society being okay with it is that it's true now in every aspect. You hear that word where it's like, oh, that's a trigger, we have to stop, you know, we have to move away from that. Like, no, sometimes you have to let people be triggered by certain
Absolutely.
things, because
And
the only way they're going to learn to deal with that,
right,
or you know, how to process those emotions and those
right.
feelings is by being in those uncomfortable situations.
Right. It's almost like when kids are not allowed to like play in dirt, and
That's,
like when you have
I've
parents,
heard that, and I've said that before.
like when you have parents that and again, this is not to knock any like parental style, but if you have a parent who really shelters the child and doesn't let them explore and kind of like build up an immune system, so
right.
like if you keep them really clean and like you clean your place and like you don't let them touch dirt, like they're not able to develop the biological ability to deal with
things.
dirt, right?
Yeah.
When they get older, which is obviously an unavoidable element of the world. Everybody at one point of their life is going to be faced with dirt.
Right. So now you're going to get sick because
right.
when you
So
were
then
little,
your body doesn't have the ability to fight off these things that are very natural.
Right.
And it's the same sort of concept when at any age or at any phase in life.
That's why I can't play baseball. My mom wouldn't let me play baseball when I was little, and now I throw like a girl. See?
I'm sorry. You throw like a what?
All right, we can erase this part of the.
Oh, okay. I don't know how that's gonna go over.
All right.
I throw better than most men, just so you know.
All right, I throw like a diesel girl.
Hey. But anyway, my point here is that when you avoid conflict and when you avoid discomfort, you actually develop a really grave inability to deal with anything that is uncomfortable. And if you want to enter the real world someday, and if you want to succeed in any capacity in the real world someday, you have to be able to fucking deal with discomfort well. And you have to at least have some sort of mechanism to get you through that situation. So this going back to leaving a traditional job that you have built all of this comfort with, although completely self-deprecating and, you know, killing every ounce of your soul, if you have built a if you've built a level of comfort, and I'm being dramatic, but if you've built a level of comfort with it, you know, it's common to stay and ignore ignore the other components and just think that it's normal or it's, you know, traditional or it's what you're supposed to be doing, that you're supposed to go to school and get a job and stay forever.
Are you of the belief that society has created this kind of system for a reason? Do you think?
Yes. And it's called Illuminati.
No, I don't believe.
I'm just joking.
I don't think that's actually happened.
No. I'm just joking. But yes, I think that
you have to keep the rat in the maze.
You
otherwise, there's no experiment.
You have to keep the rat in the maze. And that goes back to, I mean, all of this is linked to power and money and there being, and, you know, different communities and different, you know, cultures and groups of people, it being about some level of control, which you can really link back to like anything. You can link it to
because
organized
how
religion.
free? Right.
You can't have a bunch of free people running around.
Exactly.
They're going to do
dangerous.
wild things. Yes, there's going to be
but
no
they're going
order
to
in
achieve
society.
Things as well, and that's
and
really
then
what's
all of it. Right. And I mean, I think once the top make it to the top, and you can take that in whatever way you want to take it, and whoever is the top in your eyes, they want to stay at the top, and they have to put systems in place to keep everybody working and to keep everybody in the maze and to keep everybody, you know, comfortable, which is a concept that has been learned in itself. But yeah, I think people and places and
grow up, consume,
the
stay
whole concept
quiet.
of money. Exactly. Yeah, it keeps you conditioned to remain in the hamster wheel. And it takes a lot of awareness. And it also takes just the willpower to want to do it. There's a lot of people, again, this is not to
who are
knock,
happy, yeah.
And like I said, this isn't to knock any lifestyle. There are people that, you know, they are completely fulfilled. And they are like, and again, this goes back to the authentic part.
I don't believe that. I can't believe that.
But there are people that are fulfilled. There are.
I'm sure you're right.
I'm
but
sure it goes back to the authenticity of what we're talking about. So the reason that I made this change and the reason that you've had the feelings that you've had is because the work hasn't felt authentic. There are a million of people, I'm sure, who are doing things that are authentic to them. And I've heard this with other people when they've talked about this concept as well. If you're doing something and it fulfills you, and if you're happy and you're going home every day and you're satisfied, no matter what, you know, scale of money you're bringing in, like money aside, if the work is fulfilling to you, and if you feel fueled, and if you feel like you're adding value and meaning to your life, then by all means continue down that road, no matter what that looks like for you. I think the difference is when you don't feel the authentic match and you continue down that road because you feel like you have to, or because you're scared of the discomfort. And I think it's that level of awareness that when you are aware of it being unfulfilling, but you don't do anything about it, that's the whole kicker. And then there's the other, when you feel that it's not a match and you keep moving in that direction and you're like, okay, something's not right.
And climbing.
Don't know why.
Not just moving in that direction, but climbing higher and higher.
Right. And
to
really,
where you're getting thicker and thicker into the muck of not being.
Which really can be climbing deeper, down into who you are, as opposed to higher and
at
higher.
At the same time.
Down. Because I'm down, man. I'm starting from the bottom right now. I am nowhere high. No. I was, but I am now down. We're down on the ground. But hey, now there's
what a better place to grow from.
Exactly. You know what? It's interesting because as we're talking about getting deeper into the muck and getting deeper in there and figuring out all of the reasons why, I have never felt more clear. And with starting from square one, I feel like, and really going into the unknown, I have no fucking idea what's in front of me. I have this sense of clarity and I have this sense of vision that is so blind, which is interesting, blind clarity, but it's there, and it's just this feeling. And I think that's the feeling that I allowed to unveil itself throughout this whole entire thing, was that feeling was there, and it was slowly kind of making its way out. And then I, saw it in full form, fully developed. And I was like, oh, you know what? That's there now.
Now we're here.
And now we're here. So now we're here.
Well, I'm sure everybody's going to be tuned in to see how things work out.
Yeah. Us too. Us too.
I commend you. I do.
I appreciate that.
I think it's really brave, and it takes a lot to kind of be in a place where you can't see what's going to happen next, but you know that it's going to be okay, and you're willing to go through that. Because that's what it is. At the end of the day, people are too afraid.
Yeah.
There are so many people that feel that inauthenticity or that mismatch, but they're just scared of trying something because you're gonna fail a bunch of times before you succeed. That's just a part of it. And I mean, people don't want to go through that.
You know what? Though?
Emotionally, financially, they don't want to go through that. Right, they're scared.
Right. Which I get.
Of course,
I understand. Yeah. That's not. I totally get that. But you know what? I think something that's really beautiful about all of these different mediums that you and I are involved with, I mean, since starting the podcast and with my writing, there's always been a component to my writing that is fueling of believing in yourself and fueling of, independence and having the audacity to jump out there and to do whatever you want to do. I mean, I try to write to motivate people, and there's a whole portion of what I write that's meant to try to get people revved up, and I would love to incorporate that message into what we're trying to do, and I mean, using this podcast as a platform to hopefully inspire other people and to give them some little ounce of courage or curiosity or anything to start that process of digging.
And not even courage. Sometimes it's just enough to know that somebody else is going through the same thing.
Well, yeah.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
There's so many other. It's the same thing. I mean, on the other weird side of the coin, we were talking earlier about all the YouTube stuff. And, every weird thing that somebody thinks is weird, there's other people that are into the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
There's millions of people out there that apparently love to watch people eat on the internet.
I mean, listen, I get
it. I'm sorry, it's fucked up. It's really weird.
I get it. Listen, everybody out there that watches mukbang and everything, I'm with you. I get it. There's this other thing called ASMR.
You're not alone.
Everybody knows what ASMR is.
Maybe you should be alone.
Every ASMR is it.
I don't get any of it.
No, it is. And I hope I'm saying this right, but it's auditory sensory meridian response. And I think that's what it means.
Oh.
And it's
just a bunch of big words.
No, but it makes sense. It makes sense. And it's the feeling that happens in your body, and I want to say the central nervous system when you experience any sort of stimulation that's normally auditory and visually stimulating. So ASMR is this whole entire, here we are on another tangent, this is normally what happens, but ASMR,
at what point do you take the drugs? Like before the ASMR?
No,
or
but that's the best thing. It's all natural. I'm never on drugs when I watch ASMR, but it's literally this, it's like,
I think of videos. Like the videos they used to play in the club when I was younger.
It's the same situation,
like,
but you're, enhanced normally at some points of those situations.
Enhanced.
But no, this is
I've been enhanced a time or two in my day.
No, this is an all natural experience. At least for me. I'm sure you could do something and it would maybe intensify it. But no, ASMR videos, which is also like a huge niche. Like it's a lot of people, and when people that don't really know, and again, when I first looked into ASMR, we were talking to Xavier about this. I felt creepy. I was like, this feels weird. Like I'm about to watch somebody put their nails on top of a brush, and I feel like I'm a pedophile. Like I feel weird. It feels wrong. I feel weird. I don't want to talk about it. I feel like I shouldn't be watching it in public. Like it feels like this creepy, fucked up thing. But then you look into the science behind it, and you start to understand it. And it becomes a little bit more like, you're like, oh, that's why it sends tingles up my spine. And then it makes sense and all of these different things, but...
And you don't feel weird anymore.
No, you just feel good. And it's a beautiful thing. It's relaxing. Oh, I could talk about ASMR for fucking days. It is so... Weird. I'm going to get you to watch a video and you will experience what I'm talking about, which this community calls the tingles. No, I'm so serious. Yes. But
oh, not weird at all. What? So I'm one of the tingles... I'm here for the Tingles meeting. Oh, yeah.
No, but it's so good. It's so good. And it sends this shiver up your spine.
I bet.
And again, it sounds creepy, but it's the most relaxing thing in the world. But again, point of us even circling down that road is because when you put out there what you're people just want to feel like they're included, and people want to feel a unity, especially in times that are a little bit challenging. So putting out there that I don't know, I was first attracted when I heard people talking about quitting their jobs, and I was like, that sounds scary, but it also is the most enticing thing that I've ever heard. And while I was kind of experiencing this process leading up to making the decision, I was always so enticed by a tagline of quitting your job. I was like, woo, that sounds so super nice. It feels like this thing. And then I was listening to these different stories, and I was reading about different people who have made it, and they hadn't made it until they were 60, or they hadn't published their first book until they were 45, or they hadn't, gotten their first movie role. Denzel, I think, was fucking people haven't they never, I don't know, they never gave up, and at certain points, I don't know, it felt really good, and I felt connected to hearing other people's stories, and all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, there's already a community base for people who have experienced what I'm experiencing. And it goes back to the ASMR, you want to feel, it feels good to have that community and to feel included and to feel accepted and to feel, you know what I mean? To
Never
feel
give
that,
up is
that
such
closeness.
an important message, and it's something that's kind of come up recently. I had a conversation with a dude in the store the other day. He was just shopping, and he asked me what I do outside of here, and I was like, oh, I'm still into clothes, even though I'm working in a clothing store, but my own clothes. Mm-hmm. And he was also an entrepreneur, so we talked a little bit about what we both do. And just as a parting thought, he was like, hey man, don't ever give up. And I was like, no, I can't. Mm-hmm. So the two things that I believe in so much lately are A, never give up, and B, don't do it for some kind of goal of money or fame or anything. You have to be in love with doing it every day.
You have to be in love with the
because
work.
That's the way it's going to come out.
Yeah.
And where it ends up, who knows? Most of the time, if it's authentic, people are going to dig it, and you will get somewhere.
I think the money is an after. I think the work has to come first, and the money has to come first.
100%. Those are the things.
Yeah, and I also think that that's the opposite way of how most people do things, because if you're going with the cultural norm of school, job, paycheck, you're kind of in there to get that paycheck. You're in there to be able to support yourself and to be able to create that financial stability, and like I said, I'm not ever knocking that. Everybody has to have that in order to live and do things that full respect of financial stability, but it's not often the opposite way, which is the work first and then the paycheck second, which is generally the more, authentic and fulfilling process and
Yeah,
you know?
authentic and fulfilling is definitely something that lives here in the treehouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
This place is awesome.
But these are the conversations that we've been having all week. So
Yeah,
like
right?
to even just to circle
How
that
awesome
back
is
to
that?
What, right, like, and even just to circle that back to what we're talking about the environment of here, like this is the stuff that we're talking about in this environment very naturally. And like the people that come in, like we're talking about culture and we're talking about the work that they do and whether they're happy or not, and we're not ever fucking like, oh, how much money do you make? Like that's not a topic of
Right.
conversation. You're not looking at somebody's status. Like
Who said that? Oh, it
nobody's
was
coming in-
Tim Ferriss, right?
Mhm.
I think in one of his books he wrote, like, when you meet somebody and, you know, the
Right.
first thing they ask you is, oh, what do you do? They don't
Right.
ask you if you're happy.
Right.
And he just started
Right.
at, you know, because of the
Well-
pharmaceutical thing, he'd be like, oh, I sell drugs. Just to
Yeah.
kind of throw that completely off, because like
Yeah.
everybody wants to know, oh, are you making money? Not like,
Yeah.
are you cool when you get
Right.
up in the morning?
Well,
like,
I
can
mean,
you
and
sleep
it's
at
also,
night?
Yeah, and I mean, it's also the concept, like when you look at the term success or just the word success, a lot of that in our culture nowadays, success is linked to money.
Absolutely.
And when somebody is looked at as being successful, they're looked at as being like, you know, they're in the top bracket, like they're bringing in this much of their income.
Who cares? So many
But-
fucked up people have money.
Right, but so why can't we start
doesn't
looking at
solve
success
anything.
as like, are you fulfilled? Like, are you happy with what you do? Like, let's not talk about the paycheck. Like, what are you doing? Like, are you fulfilled? Is it making you happy? Like, is it producing? Is it giving you value? Is it giving your life meaning? It's
Yeah. Well, cheers to being fulfilled.
cheers to being fulfilled.
And thank you for tuning in, guys. This has been the first Even Grounds.
Yeah, many more to come.
Happy to be here. Shout out once again to Frank and Diana and Treehouse JC. Come by here, check it out. They're right by the light rail on West Side in Jersey City. And we'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Cheers.